All right, so welcome everyone. We're going to call our Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Monday, November 14th, 2022. And before we jump in, I do want to extend condolences to Deputy Warden Brent Sampson on the passing of your grandfather, Charlie Sampson. Brent, very sorry to hear that. And yeah, so I guess we'll start with any items that might need to be added to the agenda. I do have a couple myself, but I'll check with others. Do you have any additions to the agenda? Okay, so I just wanted to provide an update on the offshore wind announcement that occurred on Thursday, as well as a new fund that's been announced from the Office of Healthcare Professionals Recruitment, a new community fund. So with those additions, could I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, the next item on our agenda is the review of the minutes from October 11th, 2022. Did anybody notice any changes that might need to be made to those minutes? Okay, so hearing none, could I have a motion to approve, please?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, so now we are over to our presentation from Carol Jameson and Max Chauvin from Upland regarding the Richmond Active Living Strategy and Recreation Plan. So I think Shelley is tuning them into us virtually. We'll just give her a minute to get that queued up. Are they calling in?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
There they are. And then they're gonna call. Just makes it easier for them to speak to you guys.
For sure, yeah.
Did you speak to them in advance about Callen, or they just had anything that we did?
I think she just read it.
Looks promising.
Yep.
See, that's where we need that Jeopardy music again.
Hello,
Hello.
welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You need to speak up a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's great. So Carol and Max, welcome. Thank you for being here with us this evening. It's Amanda, you're the warden, speaking. I'm just going to hand things right over to you guys to make your presentation. We can hear you crystal clear.
All right. Well,
Great.
thank you, Mayor Mondraket. That's great. We will launch right into this then. First of all, we want to thank you for selecting us, Upland Planning and Design and the Rec Consulting Group, to work with you in preparing your physical activity and recreation master plan. So we're really excited to get the project started. So, Max, you take it to the next, yeah. So there's the project team. The project team is 7 strong and includes my co-presenter this evening, Max Chauvin, and myself, Carol Davis Jameson. And then our third partner from Rec Consulting is Karen McTavish on the lower right. And from Upland, of which I think you people are very familiar with Upland.
Yes.
Planning and design. But we have Stefan Cobbler, Anne Harad Wiley, Ryan McLean, and Kevin Cooper. So there's everyone on the team. And you will be most of the time, you're going to have to put up with me as the project manager. but you'll also be working directly with Ryan McLean on the engagement piece, and then Max and Karen and I will be the actual people doing the interviews and the consulting groups and all that kind of good stuff. So this evening, Max and I are pleased to provide a quick overview of our work plan and answer any questions you may have. So the project has 3 phases, with phase 1 starting immediately, with the final plan being presented to you at the end of March. Phase 1 is the discovery and analysis component of the project. It involves us gathering information about the current recreation delivery system in Richmond County. For example, what are the policies and procedures that currently guide your recreation decisions? What is the demographic profile of the county? What and where are your recreation facilities and programs? What role do volunteers play? What are the trends that are currently affecting rural recreation? We'll also review your approaches to funding recreation. So by mid-December, we will provide a report that captures all that information from phase 1, titled The Current State of Recreation in Richmond County, before moving to phase 2. At the end of each phase, there will be a report, of course. So now I'm going to ask Max to speak to phases 2 and 3.
So good evening, Warden, and through you to the councillors and staff. Phase 2 is community consultation. So we'll begin this work in December and proceed through to the middle of January. The first step here will be with Ryan, who is our expert in engagement on the project. And she will design with you an engagement strategy. How do we go about getting information, getting opinions, getting ideas? Who do we talk to? And so on. And with that strategy, we'll also produce some collateral, whether it's interview guides, social media posts, things like that. This will sort of be the public launch of the project. So in phase 1, we're really gathering current state information. And here we gather the opinions of citizens and councillors and so on. So there will be a user survey. There will be opportunity for online input. We will interview staff. We will interview each of the councillors. And for staff, generally, we talk with the CAO. We talk with the senior recreation staff person and a couple of other folks. We will be asking you to identify user groups that you think are important for us to talk to. So who are those major groups in the community that are involved in recreation? And these differ from project to project because depending on what your recreation resources are, you have different stakeholders and groups that you'll want us to talk to. But as an example, you might have a group of folks who are all involved in outdoor recreation, and you might want us to talk to them. You might want us to talk to sport groups. But all of that decision-making and discussion will happen in 2.1, the engagement strategy. We'll also hold some stakeholder meetings, and in the end, we will produce an engagement summary, or as I've often called it, a what we heard document. Once we have that in the current state, we then move into phase 3, which starts in the latter part of January and continues through really until the end of February. And then March is spent getting the final project document completed and wrapping up. But in that phase 3, we will draft mission and vision statements for recreation. What is the job of recreation in your community? What is recreation? What's the dramatic difference that recreation is trying to make? We will talk about programs, facilities, and trails. We will provide you with some recommendations around programs and services. We'll talk about how to engage the community on an ongoing basis so that you collect feedback, able to apply that to future decision making. We'll talk about partnerships that are important, policy recommendations, funding recommendations, and all of those recommendations we will rate based on a phasing system. So we will articulate those things that we think are immediate, those things that are medium, those things that are long term. And then we'll draft a plan. We will do a draft presentation where then you'll be able to have some feedback, and then we'll come back with the final presentation. So that is how, over the next 5 months, the project works out in the key phases. What we didn't want to spend an enormous amount of time talking about this, but wanted to make sure that you had sort of a good picture of how it's going to flow. And would like to open the floor up now to hear if you have questions or things that you're not sure about and that we could answer so that you know exactly how we're proceeding forward.
Thank you so much, Max and Carol. Councillors, do you have any questions for the team?
I do. I have one question. So the stakeholder meetings, I'm assuming, are those going to be in-person meetings? Are they going to be like public types of meetings? Or, you know, are we going to have public consultation in terms of, will we have locations where people can come to share input, both from the public and then also from user groups? Or do we have a general plan for that?
That will sort of be articulated, I think, when we have the engagement meeting with Ryan to talk about how do we do it. Different communities want different things, and while we sort of have an envelope to work in, we can restructure that depending on what you think is best. For a lot of groups, the general public input is done online, with then meeting with like-minded groups of citizens. I mean, there are examples. We've had meetings where we've put together a group of people who use outdoor spaces, but we've also put together groups that are focused on sports, those that maybe are focused on community halls, cultural groups. There's really a fair amount of flexibility in deciding how to do it, and that's the first step of phase 2 with Ryan, is to get your advice, because, Councillor, the truth is, you know your people in your community way better than we do. And so we'll be looking for you to provide some advice around how to do that.
And if I could add to that, we're also, part of that engagement or dealing with stakeholders is we want to draw upon your knowledge of the community to try to talk to people that are not currently participating in recreation and find out, well, what holds them back, what are the barriers to participation, because we want to help you in terms of long-term planning. How do you get to non-users is a word that you hear quite often.
We also would like to talk to perhaps people who are not fans of Richmond County government, Richmond County recreation, because they'll have interesting feedback for us too. But again, that is something Ryan will talk to you about, and you'll have significant input into how do we do that, who do we talk to, what kind of format we use.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, it's quiet on our end, so I think that just about answers our questions. Nice to hear that Ryan will be engaged in the project. She'll be ahead of the game in terms of knowing Richmond County for sure. She spent some time here, so that's really great. So thank you so much, Carol and Max, and yeah, we'll be in touch and look forward to the next steps.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Warden.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Exciting next steps on our plan to go forward with the Richmond Active Living Strategy. So, okay, so the next item on our agenda, I'm just going to let... Thank you, Shelby. Next item on our agenda, we have notice to be given on a couple of policies. Would be looking for a motion on the notice to be given to adopt the travel and expense policy as amended in order to maintain an orderly system for the administration and control of council and employee travel and expense. This policy provides uniform standards and procedures respecting council and employee travel and expense claims. So could I have a mover, please?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Dickton. Thank you. Any further discussion on the notice? No? All right. All All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, the next item is the notice to be given to adopt the awards of recognition policy as amended in order to provide recognition of employee loyalty and dependability over a period of years, and also to recognize excellence in service delivery and high-quality work performed by our employees. This policy ensures that loyalty, dedication, achievement, and high-quality work of employees are appropriately recognized. So could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, moving on to the agenda, we have a couple of items under my name. So the first was with regards to Accessibility Advisory Committee appointment. We had another member of the public step up and put her name forward. Chantal Boudreau would like to join our Accessibility Advisory Committee. She works with the RCMP and is passionate about accessibility issues. Her mobility was at risk due to a health issue some time ago, and unfortunately, she was able to recover her mobility, but it further demonstrated to her how we need to make our communities more accessible. And I will say that Chantal sat in on our most recent Accessibility Committee meeting and had some excellent suggestions, I think, to add to the discussion. So I'd be looking for a motion to approve Chantal Boudreau as a member of our Accessibility Advisory Committee.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried. So the next item on our agenda is a familiar topic. It's regarding washouts on the roads in the Oban area. So, you know, certainly for myself, I've had outreach from a number of residents in Oban who are dealing with road washouts that go way beyond the inconvenience of rerouting and are creating sometimes dangerous situations with regards to responding emergency vehicles because some of the road is impassable. And certainly Hurricane Fiona exacerbated the problem. And the rains we've had since have not helped either. So at this time, you know, I guess I'd be just seeking feedback from council. I know in the past we've written sort of letters of encouragement to the provincial government to deal with particular problem areas, which gives us, I think, puts the voice of council behind it, and I guess seeks out council's support to potentially writing another such letter, requesting at least a timeline on the fix, because certainly right now it appears that there is no timeline. That the holdup is related to availability of gear and other contracts that you know have been taking the attention of the contractor to awarded the tender. But with, I guess, looking for some feedback from council on whether or not we could add our voice for support there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, for sure. We've sent letters from different areas throughout the county, and this would be, you know, this is no different. This is a safety issue. You know, more than, like you said, more than accessibility, it's about safety as well. So certainly I would support you writing a letter to the Minister of Public Works, yeah, to voice our concerns.
Okay.
Particularly with the lack of timeline, I think is a
Right.
bigger, that's always a bigger concern to me. I always understand that there are time factors, but if you don't even have a general timeline, then you're really at a loss.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Sampson.
Yeah, I would agree. And if we're going to send a letter, I mean, I think it has to go to the province. It's, you know, on the ground level down here, we can only do so much, but again, they are the ones that ultimately push the button and say go, so. Yeah, I would support sending a letter to the province and asking for a timeline.
Okay. So if councillors are in agreement, maybe I could ask for a motion to have a letter, to have the warden draft a letter to the Minister of Public Works requesting a timeline on repairing issues on the Oban Road, or in Oban.
Yep, so moved.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sampson. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Sean Sampson, thank you. Any further discussion on that item? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Okay, that motion is carried, and I just want to thank council for their support on that. I know this is a pressing issue for the people who are living in Oban, and I'll be happy to be able to report back that we are supportive of their efforts to get more attention to the matter. So, next on the agenda, we have from the Director of Public Works a briefing note regarding the Babbins Hill look-off. So the briefing note was included in the council package, and maybe I'll look to you, Troy, to see would
Sure.
you like to, you and Chris maybe like to speak to it, and then have some questions, or
Yep.
how would you like to proceed?
Yep, it's been included, the maps are there. Those of you that are familiar with the site know that there's the big rock that's there as well, that can either be incorporated or removed as part of the process. But right now, before we get too deep into the weeds with engaging other people, we just wanted to make sure that we had the scope and understood the extent of the development that council was happy with before we started digging into finding out numbers and hours and pieces of equipment that we would need to make this thing happen. You know, we have natural limitations with the drop-off, and we have other limitations by the intersection to the west. So looking at that diagram, we were just looking for your feedback to say, okay, start with this line and going this far out, and then we'll come back to you with some actual numbers and try and have it ready for capital in 2023.
Okay. All right, so maybe I'll just ask councillors if you have any questions on the information provided. Or any comments?
I'm just looking at the, excuse me, the deck board, so is that, I guess, and I don't want to make it sound like I don't know, but it is, are we looking at building a wooden platform deck to put in on location there, or were we looking more at just putting a rocked?
Like it
Gravel.
is now, like the gravel it is now?
Correct.
Okay, well, again, that's up to you. I believe the deck boarding came from the recommendation of the plan a couple of years ago. What year was that? That was,
I think it was 2016. That was just part of the tourism project. We just put that out there as background. It's not that we're recommending any particular development, but that's what was planned for that site back then. You know, essentially, it was just the wooden structure. I don't think there was any expansion of the area, so parking would still have been very limited. But it was a, large wooden deck and a look-off at that time.
So we're talking about an expansion of parking where it's currently at, then the wooden deck and whatever further towards the intersection.
Yeah, the deck that essentially was just included, just to brief
Yeah.
council, and in the event council wanted to do something similar.
Right.
Or altogether different, but, initially, I think we were talking about expanding parking, and not just parking, the functional use of the space, I guess. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what we might want to look at, and then we can get some firmer numbers, so when we talk about it during budget, we can give you a better idea what it might cost to do whatever you feel appropriate.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know, it's probably gonna be something that might be multi-stage, but I would be, personally, I would be happy in just seeing the groundwork. I mean, like everything else, wood over time is gonna either rot, break, fall apart. It's another thing we have to worry about. If it breaks or somebody cuts it, then, we have to, it's extra maintenance. Whereas if it's just one big solid ground foundation right now, then I think,
Picnic tables, park benches.
picnic table, park bench, just on a solid, whether we, I guess we poured cement or we just left it, Class A gravel or something that's compacted. I think the cost would be a lot less, and we don't have to worry about maintenance, more or less in that regard, for the time being. We could always look at the wooden structure down the road, but.
Yeah. So basically then, looking at the costs surrounding that, like, almost like you say, as a stage one,
Yeah,
and if
like-
there's future development because we are pursuing a broader plan or, more strategic.
some trail plans.
Right, some trail.
Yeah, and
plans.
I guess kind of like the, and only because I was down there again last week, but kind of like the look-off in Canto. It's got a great, you can pull your car right off.
Yep.
You probably park 8, 10, 15 cars, but it's just a gravelled look-off.
Right.
One or two benches along the edge and, I guess guardrail for protection, but that would be, I think that would be personally, that would be my stage one phase, or phase one. is to just expand the size of it.
Okay.
But that, I mean, that's basically what we have right now, right? So according to the plan, it does give like adequate space if people park properly for 5 to 7 cars. We have benches there, we have a picnic table there, so, you know, I, of course, I love that spot, and I think it's great, but, you know, we're talking about potentially doubling that, or whatever we decide as a council. And so, do we feel the need to expand the parking area by 5 spots and then more seating, you know, at a cost of, you know, like a rough estimate, 25 to 35,000, which we know rough estimates are never high enough, you know? And so I'm just a little concerned. I'm more interested, to be honest, to find out from, you know, through Troy to the staff, like, how much of their time would be eaten up by looking at some of those maps that Chris mentioned in his briefing notes to figure out, you know, what would be the quantity of fill that would be required and what would be the normal price for those and those types of pieces, because it may financially just not be something that makes sense, right? It's not like, again, that we drive by there and we see more than 5 to 7 cars parked there at any time. Like, I've driven by and seen 3, but again, and I don't live on Almaden, so please correct me if I'm wrong, if you've seen more than that, but I just wonder how, when we have so many other infrastructure projects we need to do, and we have so many other potential tourist projects that have nothing done, you know, there is a lookout there is decent parking, there is something decent for people to sit with, like, we have a whole bunch of other areas that have nothing, and we're just getting ready to put some plans into place that we're gonna need to fund. So I would hate to waste staff's time gathering all of, you know, if it's amount, you know, I'm expecting it's a decent amount of time to gather that information, if it's not something that we would be putting high on our priorities list above other infrastructure pieces or tourism pieces or recreation pieces that we need to do. That's just my concern.
I guess that would be something that Chris or Troy would have to answer, but the only thing I would recommend is, if Chris plots it out, then, you know, send it out to a local contractor and ask them to stop in and estimate the cost to,
Yeah, if it's as simple as that, I mean, it didn't really sound that simple to me as I read it, but again, that's not my area of expertise, so that's why I'm asking.
like, I don't think I would go into, you know, like I say, for stage 1 or whatever, I don't think I would go into a whole lot of detail other than pinpointed where we would, you know, where Chris feels to expand the location. Unfortunately, you're right, if you actually pull in and park straight, you probably get 4 or 5 cars, but you never, one pulls this way and one pulls that way, and the 2 cars are parked sideways, and then anybody else is kind of left either dangling on the road or saying, yeah, you know what, I'll stop the way back or some other time. It just doesn't give you that appropriate, I guess, personal feeling to pull off. And
Yeah, I think nothing short of painted lines are going to stop, are going to control how people park, and even that can be stretched, so.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Remember, unless you got painted lines, people are going to park the way they want to park, and yeah. But going back to what Councillor Digdon said, that's where I would start, to be honest. I hear you, Councillor Sampson. So for me, what I would do is probably just contact local contractors and say, here's what we're planning. We want to see how much fill it's going to take, how much construction it's going to take, how much excavation. Give us some sort of rough idea without taking up too much time from our staff, and then just take that number and come back and say, this is going to be, and like you said, Councillor Melanie, most numbers sometimes are low. So if we feel that number is high to begin with, then we really got to take a look at it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask a question, maybe more for our Almaden councillors? So the most pressing issue, is it the amount of parking space, or is it more like impediments to the view, or you know what I mean? Are you worried about tree growth? Like, what's the? So
it's a little of both. So
okay.
When it was brought to my attention, it was that the tree growth is starting to, I guess, alter the view of the whole harbor. And then the other one was, and I'm just going to say a bus, because last summer that's what happened. A bus pulled in, and then 1 or 2 of the tourists that were there couldn't pull in off the road as well with the bus, because it just kind of pulled off, not enough. So then the tourists actually pulled to the side and then looked and then went down the low road and couldn't get a good view and then left. And then it was actually just brought to my attention that you can't even get 2 buses to pull off. So I was like, well, you know, we do own the land, so, again, you know, like Councillor Sampson said, I don't wanna spend a whole lot of time
Yeah.
of staff's, you know, time and energy into it, but if we peg it out, you know, these guys do that for a living, so whether it's one of the, you know, one of the contractors, they
Does
should
that
be able
sound
to.
doable then, Troy, do you think?
I think it
or-
does.
Yeah.
I think it's something we can do, and
Okay,
We would need to hire someone to do a topographical survey to get a reasonable estimate.
okay.
So we can't just reach out to,
The contractor needs to know the volume of material, which is.
but he would be able to assess that. Like,
A contractor won't do a survey. You need an actual number, so we'd have to expend some money to get a consultant there to do a little bit of survey work for us.
to determine the fill.
To determine the volume. I mean, they could look and take a roundabout guess of what it'll take, but if you're looking for a reasonable number, we would have to go about getting a survey.
To actually budget for.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of slope there, and if you're off by a small margin, it could be a big volume of material, just the way it drops off, so.
and I understand that, however, if the topical survey is gonna cost us more than the smaller margin that we're going to be off, then I'd be willing to say we're, you know, again, these guys do it for a living. I can almost guarantee, and I'll throw names, but I can almost guarantee you that if Peter Cova says it's gonna take 28 loads, you might get 29, but you're not gonna get 31 or 32 or 33, and not just him, you know.
Yep.
All the guys in the industry that do it, they're pretty bang on. Again,
I think we have enough to take away right now, though.
Yeah.
The idea of what level we want to
Contractor
go to
estimate.
with stage one.
Great.
And if we take that and come back to us, let us go see what we can find out, and if we have to engage somebody, we'll come back and see you first.
Okay, that sounds good.
Because we have time to get it in before capital.
Yes,
We
that's
have
right.
lots
yeah,
of time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, great, thank you so much for the follow-up on that, Chris and Troy, I really appreciate it. Okay, so the next item on our agenda are community acknowledgements, and we do have, I think, a couple. Our October Volunteer of the Month is one I definitely want to mention. Got to spend a little bit of time with her on Remembrance Day, actually. So Sharon Chilvers has been back in our community after being away for many years. She's moved back home to River Bourgeois in 1999 and immediately showed her passion for her community when she joined the River Bourgeois Seniors Club as their secretary, and she continues to support the group in that capacity after 23 years, which is a huge commitment. I know through various grant opportunities, Sharon's been a driving force behind the complete renovation of the club, including a full gym for the seniors, and has organized the Seniors Expo for 5 years. But I can say firsthand with, that her volunteerism goes well beyond the Seniors Club to other organizations that she supports, and I think we don't even know the half of it. So I just want to extend our congratulations to Sharon Chilvers from River Bourgeois on being our October Volunteer of the Month. Our community just definitely wouldn't be the same without her, so we appreciate her efforts. And I'll just ask councillors if you have any other community acknowledgements to make. Councillor Sampson, did you?
Yeah, for me, I want to acknowledge the banner committee from the Branch 150 Legion here in Arichat. That ceremony that took place a few weeks ago was such a great sense of pride and acknowledgement for our veterans and their families, and to be honest, our entire community. I urge everybody that can to take a walk from, Dooley's over here to the St. Anne Center and walk this sidewalk and look at those banners. It's a beautiful sight and a great event and great honor for our veterans. So just want to acknowledge and congratulate the banner committee and everybody involved in that situation.
Well said. They are an incredible addition to the community.
Yeah,
Really
it's,
are.
and I'm hearing rumblings already that it's expanding and people are like, how do we get a banner next year? And so it's,
That's really great.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Sampson. Are there any other community acknowledgements?
So I don't know that it'd fall under community acknowledgements, but I'd like to, I guess I get the pleasure of hanging the wreath out at the Branch 150, or the honor, I guess it should say, and it was anybody who had the pleasure of being there, seen Elias, 102 years young, very, very chipper, very active, right up until about 3 years ago. We played darts together. So he made a comment that, just a little quick story, but he made a comment. He said, "I remember you from somewhere." And I said, "Yeah, I'm your counselor." And he's like, No. He said, "Somewhere else." I said, "I was at your place last year. I'm your counselor." He said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "But somewhere else." I said, "We used to play darts together." Anyway, I have a picture, and he started to laugh, and he said, "Well, I'm glad you're a better counselor than you are a dart player." I was like, "Thank you very much." But yeah, he's still very active and very strong on his feet for 102 years old. So
Oh, that's great.
a shout out to the Legion for, definitely a job well done, and yeah, they definitely nailed it this time with.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Councillor Digdon. Shout out, I think, to all of the Legions. I know I attended several ceremonies throughout the county, and it was just, it's always an emotional day. And so thank you to the Legion members for their continued activism and making sure we don't forget.
I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our local ATV Riders Club. As you've heard me say, back during COVID, the first COVID ceremony, there was hardly any traffic at our local Legion, and it didn't look like too much was going on at that time. And we had some ATVs pass, through the ATV trail during the ceremony, so that kind of was a sore spot for me. But since that time, our local ATV Riders Association blocks those trails off from 10:45 to 11:45 or so. So that situation will not occur anymore because of these people and volunteering to close those trails. So just want to acknowledge them and thank them for that as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Okay, are there any other community acknowledgements? Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you everyone for your contributions there. We'll move on to correspondence, action required. We do have several items. First with Jason Martel, our CFO, has provided correspondence regarding 2 grant requests. The first one from the Administration Portuaire de Pays de Gras for a Type 1 infrastructure grant fund in the amount of $10,000 towards the sort of the monument that was unveiled some time ago, and sort of some of the assets kind of immediately surrounding it in our harbor area. So I'm not sure if anyone would like to speak to that. Councillor?
Yeah, Warren Market, thank you. So that project has been ongoing for a while. It's been a vision of the community for a while, and some of the stages are in place now, and that monument is in place and was unveiled. I've gone to look at it, and it's a beautiful monument, and beautiful piece of heritage and culture for our region, right? So I applaud everybody involved.
I have to say, it is beautiful. The design is quite stunning. It's also really, it stands out from other monuments. And I was on the Halifax waterfront recently, and you kind of become, there's so much going on the Halifax waterfront, you don't see, you kind of become blind to some things. But certainly the monument that's on the Halifax waterfront, I immediately recognized it and thought, oh, here's another one in the network. As an Acadian region and an Acadian province, like it was really interesting. And it's interesting how these monuments across the province connect the Acadian communities together, and I think it's wonderful to be part of that network. And I think it would be wise for us to mention that Richmond County is recognized, recognized on the monument here as well. So, thank the organizers for that. So, just regarding the grant request, they have requested $10,000. Which I think had come from a discussion maybe a little more than a year ago. It's been over some time now. And so the official request is in. Obviously we don't have a lot of money left in our grant program at this point. But I did chat with Troy very, very quickly as the meeting was getting started. And, we do, again, have that harbor or waterfront, those funds, similar to how we supported the Forge, the last meeting with their grant request. So we could, in order to reach the $10,000, we could look at tapping into the fund. and ask staff to maybe come back with a confirmation or at least a recommendation that this would qualify for Canada Community Build Funds. I know there's no guarantee at the beginning, but we could look at tapping into that fund that we set aside.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with this request is through the CCBF fund. And again, we allocated, I think it's 50,000 for waterfront harbor development. So when you look at that CCBF fund, you look at point 16, 17, I know I keep repeating myself, but when it comes to recreation, tourism, culture, right? So those points would fit this, but we also, we allocated those funds for harbor development, right? So I would like to see us look into that to see if we can fund the 10,000 through that allocation.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Sampson. Is there any other discussion on this item?
The only concern I had when looking at the application that was submitted, right, is that, one of the points is that the project cannot start before approval is given. Now, if we go through the CCBF, that's a different, it's not this application, because we don't have that on this application. Like, do you want to apply through the Canada Community Building Fund? We don't have that, and maybe we should consider what we're going to do about that, just throwing that out there. But, I mean, this project has started, so technically, would they be eligible, let's even pretend we had enough money in these funds to give it out.
Yes.
I had somebody else ask me about a project, and they said, we're starting, and I said, if you're starting tomorrow,
right,
you can't apply, because that's the rule.
Yeah. It looks like there's additional work, and I don't really know if they've cut it up into phases, but there's additional work that I think they were looking to put this towards the flagpoles.
And they're putting shanties.
Then we maybe need to sort of identify that, it could be a phase of a project. I'm just feeling like there's some gray zone here that I don't love. I'm not a big fan of that, so we may want to just send that back to bylaw policy to kind of clean that up a little bit, or clean up our application, like whatever our intention is. Again, I don't know that necessarily applies here, because I think if we can do it through CCBF, we may consider that, and then, but that was one of the things that sort of, as I initially looked through it, it started, the monument is ordered, there's a lot of stuff on the go, so they haven't really they've actually identified that our money would go towards the monument, but that's already on the go, so I'm just.
Good point.
I think I'd share some of those same concerns, only because I had a project within District 5 that they had to withdraw their grant application, only because, as it turned out, the contractor was able to start sooner than originally anticipated, and so by that time they didn't want to hold anything up, so they withdrew their application because of that. That being said, I also think that what Councillor Sean Sampson said makes a lot of sense, where under this waterfront development it does seem to fit that very well. So I'd definitely be in favor of having staff look into that if that were to qualify under that program. I think that would probably be our best course of action.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Warden.
Did we have a motion, and maybe it wasn't in this, a motion, but was the initial ask for 15, and didn't we not agree on 10?
So there was no official agreement from council. There was a sort of discussion point around the 10, but it did originally begin at the 15 request.
I thought, and I guess we'd have to go back and check, but I thought that we were okay with the 10 as long as Richmond County was recognized in the. And now that.
We didn't approve it, though.
There was no motion.
It was discussion.
I don't know there was motion, but there was definitely discussion around the.
But their project was held up because they needed to have the proper permissions, and then that's why it's sort of it pushed to the side while they were dealing with all their permission pieces, which clearly they have now, right? They had a little bit of a path to get to it, but they got it, so that's great.
And looking back at my notes, that's exactly what it was. The initial ask was 15,000, and then we asked, if we could get, if we invested 10, would it still include the logo, our logo on the monument, and it was agreed, that would be fine. But again, there was no motion put on the table or anything, it was just open discussion.
That's right. Okay, so it sounds like we have agreement maybe to ask staff to go back and look at applying the $50,000 fund that we put aside during budget through CCBF. Maybe just to make it official, I'd request a motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson.
Thank you, Warden.
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Digdon seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. So the next item is a grant request from Village on the Canal Association. I'm going to recuse myself because I am chair of that organization still, although I will put it out there to the public that if anyone is interested in chairing that organization in the future, the position is open. And I'll declare a conflict and leave it to Deputy Warden Sampson. Thank you.
Deputy.
Okay, so we had the grant application from the Village on the Canal Association. It was included in your package. I believe they're looking for $1,000 towards the Festival of Trees. I don't know if there's any, open up for any discussion on this, where councillors felt they wanted to go with this request.
But
So I guess a couple of things I would say, if it's okay.
give her-
I mean, it's certainly an event that draws a lot of people to the St. Peter's area and St. Peter's and surrounding areas every year. It is their 25th anniversary, so that is a bit of a special event. Of course, knowing that the warden would need to remove herself from the discussion, and also knowing our typical practice of asking people in terms of their district funds, we sort of chatted a little bit about her feelings about, could we make a decision on her fund? And she was comfortable with us doing whatever we decided as a group that we would do. Her pot of money is pretty little right now, $538. So, even if we drained her fund, we're not going to get all the way to the $1,000. So I just wanted to say that, I guess, as we discuss it, as the rest of council, that, she'd be willing to put some money in. I will also, on my own behalf, my district is very close to District 4, and I would be willing to put some money in on that as well. So I'd be comfortable with putting $250 of my own pot of district funds to get us to the $1,000, and then just leave the rest kind of open to everyone else to see what they think.
So, I guess, I don't know if we're going around the table or whatever, crisscross, but I guess, and I agree with you, Councillor Sampson, that, it is a big event down there, and St. Peter's, fortunately has the, I guess, the most true traffic going through of anywhere probably, then, so the warden gets stuck with the bigger bills, and that's great to see that she's almost empty. But I guess in the gift of Christmas, I think, honestly, we're not winding down, but it's the money's dwindling. So I would be okay to go 200. Honestly, I would be okay if everybody was in agreement to go 200 from each district, just to I guess soften the blow and leave the warden with $338 to in her own, and that would leave our pot,
Our regional fund.
our regional fund,
Where it's at, yeah.
to be able, if
Yeah, and I'm okay with that, because chances are, there's residents from Almaden that's going to take that Festival of Trees in. It's a great event. Yeah, I'm sure that residents from my district and Councillor Digdon's district is going to make the trip to St. Peter's. Chances are I'll make that trip as well, so, yeah. I was looking forward to spending the warden's money, but I guess not. I guess we're going to leave her off the hook this time, but, yep. No, I'd be in agreement with that.
No, that seems very reasonable to me. I'd be fine with that as well.
Okay.
so I'll make a motion that $200 from each district be allocated to the grant request for the Festival of the Trees, or Village on the Canal Association, I guess, whatever.
Okay, we have a mover. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
We spent some of your money, but not all of your money.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Warden, for taking care of that. All right, so the next item on our agenda is a letter from Murdoch McPherson, Rodney Chesson from the Highland Village for a request for financial support. And as you'll recall, we had a really great presentation from the Highland Village some time ago. And they've sent the follow-up request for financial support, and we'll just kind of open it for discussion from council at this point. My feeling is that we may need to be referring this to budget.
That's my feeling.
Just based on, you know, the amounts kind of discussed, so, but happy to hear from council.
No, yeah, no, that's where I was, that was the direction I was going in, Madam Warden. Yeah, I would defer this to the budget, yeah.
Okay. Okay. That sounded like a move and a second. All right, so moved by Councillor Sean Sampson then to defer to budget, and seconded by Deputy Warden Brent Sampson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. And the next item on correspondence action required is information from Property Valuation Services Corporation regarding virtual assessment 101 sessions. They've scheduled a couple of, they've scheduled several sessions, 6 in total, I believe, from the correspondence. I guess this is just a call for councillors to maybe consider registering. I have registered for the December 15th session, and I'm looking forward to that. And I will say, having discussed it really briefly with the contacts we met at NSFM, Troy was part of that conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. So any questions, I guess, from council or requests at this point to register for any of the sessions? They're free, correct?
Yeah.
They-
And they did volunteer to do like a full session of just our council on another date in the new year, if you would like. So if these dates don't work. So,
Okay.
I think it's probably easier if we pick the ones that work for us in the fall than trying to herd us together.
it can be a challenge.
Just
In the
saying.
snow.
Especially as we head into the winter months. Yes.
But they are open to virtual, sorry, Counselor, they are open to
Yeah,
virtual
yeah.
as well.
I mean, I always like to do those things as a group. I feel like there's some benefit to that because we may have similar questions or,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah. I'm looking at Wednesday, November 16th. Yeah, that might not work for me. That might be the only one.
Is
Yeah.
that the one? Okay.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe to that point, maybe if we did book
Yeah.
something, if we had something booked prior to these dates, I would feel better to kind of let these dates pass, but I don't want to miss the sessions. I do
Right.
definitely want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they're there, and if you want us to register you, we can. But
No,
if you guys
yeah,
want to do it
myself.
on your
Yeah.
own with the RSVP, that's
Yeah.
fine as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Is this open to the public as well, or just to the?
I believe it said
No,
councillor.
municipal officials
And senior
staff.
staff.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, like, we didn't get this email in our inbox, right? Because I don't remember seeing this. Could you just flip that to us perhaps in our email, in our inboxes, just so that I can grab the link from there to register?
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so, well, if there's some interest in doing a group session in the
Well,
new year,
we
could
can
we
look at
leave
that.
that with you to look
Absolutely.
at trying to
Do you
schedule
like that better
something?
too? Yeah, well then maybe let's try that.
Yeah, okay. All right, so maybe I could have a motion then to request that staff
Only
try to
on Wednesday.
book a group session for the new year?
Yeah,
Absolutely. They
Okay.
offered it, so.
Yeah.
well, yeah, it would be better.
It would be great, yeah. Okay. All right, so could I have a motion to that effect, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second the motion.
Councillor Sean Sampson, thank you. Any further discussion?
And if it were possible, maybe evening may work better.
Yes.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
if that's a possibility.
Yeah, and if it's virtual, it's
Yeah.
pretty painless to make that happen for an hour, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
And if it is evening, then Wednesday is on the
Is
table.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Wednesday's okay in the
Wednesday's okay.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the table if it's in
Oh,
the
okay.
evening, yeah. Yeah.
I just have a big X on Wednesday. so-
So does he.
Yeah, so do I, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is an email from Amanda Fernandez from Inclusify regarding a workshop on equity, diversity, and inclusion. They are suggesting two cohorts, one on December 6th and 8th from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. and again on just January 17th and 19th from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. Those are the cohorts, I guess, for which they're currently accepting registrations. I had a few questions about this one because I don't really have any background information on the company. So I don't know, Troy, is there any additional info you would have on it?
I do not, but we can look into it to have something for you to look at in our council meeting on the 28th so that we could still hit we will still be able to hit both of those, but more likely the January one, because I would guess the December 6th and 8th one may fill up. I thought there was a
They're saying
25th
the deadline is the
deadline, wasn't there?
25th
Yeah,
to
25th
register for
deadline,
either
yeah.
of them, yeah.
Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, no,
I don't.
that's okay. I kind of wondered about whether or not this group, did they come to us through NSFM? Like, I'm just like,
I know, I'm always
I'm a little, I don't have
It's just a
any.
business opportunity.
cautious.
Yeah, like, is there a cost associated with,
Exactly. So that
and I don't
information.
really want to throw the cost and.
No, but it's a
And the topic at hand,
consideration.
however.
Yeah.
There is a cost to this one because the tickets were through Eventbrite and
I tried the link and I couldn't get to it.
Oh, because sometimes Eventbrite does free ones
They
too.
do free ones
Yeah.
too, but I want to say this one was 100 and something.
Oh.
But I could have been looking at the tie-ins thing this afternoon as well
Yeah.
for tourism.
Right. So, so without any information on the company itself and whether or not this has come to us through, I guess what I would consider a credible channel, my feeling is that maybe we take a pass on this for now, maybe look at other opportunities. If council is interested in equity, diversity, inclusion training, we could certainly approach it from another angle,
Absolutely.
Not to say that we wouldn't go with this company in the future, but just in the timeline, it just doesn't seem like it's going to work for us.
I think as to your point, normally this kind of stuff would probably be channeled through NSFM.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how they ended up to us, but if we don't know that,
It's
then I
just
don't.
unclear.
And it wasn't in any of their little
Yeah.
Yeah.
they send those emails with all that little
Right.
bits of information. I never saw it in there anywhere, so.
Okay. Okay, so we will maybe just table this one for now? Okay, great. So correspondence for information purposes, there were a couple of letters, one from Eastern District Planning Commission with the letter to Minister Hallman regarding the Coastal Protection Act, and one from Environment and Climate Change regarding EDPC's letter regarding the Coastal Protection Act, so
Yep.
you saw the reply come through. And unless there's any questions, those really are there for information purposes only.
Not often we have both the letter and the response
Yes,
at the same
I
time.
know. Yes, I will say from the response, it certainly seemed like we maybe hit a nerve or something there because their
He
reply
was not
came
very
quickly,
pleased with our.
and it was quite emphatic. And Sean and I are both members of the board of Eastern District Planning Commission. We fully supported that letter. Those are pertinent questions to be asking. The information from the NSFM conference, I know I sat at a table with a representative who was working on the Coastal Protection Act for the province, and some of the concerns I raised were certainly, I would say, addressed by him in comments. I don't, about maybe there's not going to be very much administrative burden. However, folks who are more, folks who are around the EDPC table that are very involved from the municipal perspective are not convinced that that is the case. So I think there is still some back and forth to be done there, and something we want to keep on our radar.
Yeah, for sure. I'm concerned that the people who are actually going to be doing the work are anticipating that it will be a burden, yet the people who are not doing the work feel it's not going to be a
Correct.
burden, and obviously that doesn't seem to make sense.
Right.
Right? The experts in the field, the people who are doing the work, feel it's going to be a problem. And I mean, again, it's just another example of, some provincial mandates that have been pushed down to our responsibility, so. That's a
Right.
concern to me.
And, I think at the end of the day, the position is it's a provincial act, it's provincial regulations. It
Right.
should be regulated provincially. And that's the stand I think many municipalities are taking.
Yeah.
And the solution that was presented through, through John by the EDPC board of, let's just make this something that the province approves it, you come with your certificate that says
That's right.
we're good to go,
Yeah.
and then they just do their normal processes.
Yeah.
Sounded like a really reasonable solution.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree, yeah,
That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so any further discussion on those letters? All right. So hearing none, I'm going to move us on to the next item on the agenda, which is, we have some unfinished business. So Terry Smith, regarding the Destination Cape Breton request for support for the provincial amendment to the marketing levies, and I believe, Troy, you might have something to do.
I did, yeah. We, through Shelley, we reached out to 5 of our neighbors just to see what they were doing, and most are either waiting or haven't done anything about it, and one is bringing it to council now because they weren't even aware of it. So, Shelley was bringing it to their attention, so it just didn't hit their radar yet, which seemed odd to us, but that's
The
all
other
right.
municipalities.
Yeah, and then 2 of the municipalities, or one of the municipalities hasn't gotten back to us yet.
Okay.
So it just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of action, but there is some wait and see going on to see what the province actually does with it.
So the province has indicated, though, that they're going to say that, the levy will apply if you have at least one. They've made it clear their plan is to leave it up to municipal bylaws to determine the number of units before that an accommodations provider would have before the levy would kick in. So the ball is firmly in our court, and
Yeah, was it not, and I could be wrong on this, but from what I understood from the province, was it a bill they passed that basically just allowed for the 3%?
Yes.
But it's not, it would still be up to us
It
to
would still be up to
decide
us.
whether or not, yeah.
Well, it would be up to us to put the parameters around it. So if the 3% is the levy, which is, a reasonable levy when you looked at the information that Terry presented to us. So the 3% is the levy amount. When does it kick in, is the question. Does it kick in if you have one, accommodations unit that you rent, whether it's an Airbnb or a B&B or whatever it is, short-term rental, or does it kick in at 10, which is where the current bylaw is? And as Terry was expressing concern about the unfairness of that, and I know certainly it's something that I'd heard quite a bit about when I was in my previous life at the Chamber of Commerce. So to create that even playing field would be to apply to all, and I think that was the request that Terry was making for us to support.
I just, as long as I thought it was still twofold in the sense that it would still be to approve that 3% as well, right?
Yes, it is for both, yeah.
Yeah.
She was trying to make sure that all 5 of the municipalities in Cape Breton would do things together
Yeah.
at the same level as well, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't have one rate in our county and another rate in Victoria.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I don't think the act will allow for that, right? Based on what he showed us.
I thought the act was that it was a uniform rate across.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
That wasn't a deciding factor.
yeah, the rate
The
wasn't.
rate wasn't,
Wasn't the issue, it was when does it kick in is the biggest part of the issue.
At 10 units or 1 unit or.
Yeah, exactly.
I think in reality, when we look at it though, with all these businesses, whether they have 10 units, 5 units, 2 units, 1 unit, they're all benefiting from this marketing.
All of
at the
them
end of the
are.
day.
there.
Absolutely.
So, to me, it only makes sense to have it across the board.
Okay.
So then do you think we're ready to jump? I
don't
like I said
know-
last time,
don't
somebody
know what
has to go
other-
first here.
Yeah, and I don't know what other information we'd really need. And if, if other councillors aren't comfortable with it, that's fine too, but I'm not sure what more information we could gather other than if other municipalities were going ahead with it, but we'd only be just following suit. So, it might be better to find out how we feel as a council this evening, if people are in favor of that.
Okay.
I think, was that part of Is that part of PVSC's discussion that we had kind of on the sideline up there?
No, this is Destination Cape Breton Association.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have-
PDSC would not be touching the marketing levy. Like, it's not
Okay,
based
so it
on
was-
valuation of the property.
No, but I think, so it was my conversation I had with PVSC on the side up there.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay.
Did you pull up what Terry was actually asking?
I am looking for it right now.
Okay, so
but my
I think I
computer is
found it.
Not cooperating.
Okay, so I think I found it because that's what I was
Okay.
looking for as well. So I'll just sort of, if you know, if the council will indulge, I'll just sort of read the email that we would have gotten from Terry in early October. So basically it just said, proposal approach would replace the current legislation with a new province-wide act to govern marketing levies. The understanding is that both municipal elected officials and senior administrators have been invited to take part in consultations. Okay. They offered 3 suggested changes. So the 3 suggested changes that Destination Cape Breton presented were, 1, that the new legislation would state that the levy will apply to all fixed roof accommodations, as defined in the Tourism Association Recreation Act, which includes Airbnb and VRBOs, regardless of the number of rooms. So that's one thing that they want to see changed. The second is that the language for usage of the funds be changed to, funds collected will be used exclusively on activities and programs that directly support the development of the tourism industry and marketing of destinations from which they are generated. And that would allow the funds to be used to address like workforce shortage and in addition to marketing, because I think the original verbiage talked about marketing in the area.
Yes.
And then the third one was that there is a seamless process to replace the current Cape Breton Island marketing levy with the new legislation, so there's no impact on planning and budgeting for Destination Cape Breton, so that it's a seamless transition.
And no gap.
So this is what he's asking for us to support them in those 3 pieces, to advocate, to have the legislation changed to reflect those changes.
Right.
And I think I said it last meeting, I think that, you know, somebody has to be the first to jump or not jump. And I think that those requests are reasonable. Destination Cape Breton does really great work. And I guess it comes back to my whole concept of when the experts tell you how something should be, perhaps we should listen to those. And I've maybe not been following my own advice there. If the folks at Destination Cape Breton feel that those are positive changes to the legislation, I think I'm ready to agree with them.
The one thing that strikes me, Councillor Sampson, is the work shortage.
Well, right.
Being in this
and if
industry.
the wording doesn't change in the legislation,
Right.
then it means that the money can only be used towards marketing campaigns.
Right.
And it's not much use to market to get people here if we have no people to take care of them when they arrive.
And I can tell you from co-hosting workshops
Right.
With Destination Cape Breton, as I said in my previous life with the Chamber, we need them to be able to participate in that because they have the information. They have the research. So
I can tell you, being in the restaurant industry, in the food service industry, that worker shortage is a big problem in that industry, so, in the tourism industry as well, yeah, so, yeah.
I guess the only thing I'd be skeptical is why is nobody moving forward? Is it because there's not enough information put out there yet? Or I just find it very funny that no other county has jumped the gun.
Yeah. So Terry did say we were the first group that he presented to. The legislation is, it's a draft right now, and the request is, they're putting this forward as their position, Destination Cape Breton Association. I can't speak for other municipalities. Maybe they're thinking, well, that's enough. You know what I mean? That if DCBA is suggesting it, I think the fact that Terry came to us though with that request is something we should consider. I mean, the ask is clear, so I understand what you mean. I'm surprised the feedback has been that it hasn't hit their radar. Really, really surprised. So maybe this is a way that we can help it hit the radar.
Yeah.
Right? So similar to what we saw Warden Pitts do in Guysborough County with the letter to telecommunications.
Right.
regarding telecommunications, expressing his support for Premier Houston's letter, so we could do something
Yeah.
similar and say copy to all
Yep.
of the municipalities in Cape Breton.
And in fairness, some of the other counties around us are dealing with things post-Fiona
Sure.
that we aren't, by the
Right.
grace of God. And it may have got bounced right off their radar.
Yeah.
Because they're dealing with other things and more pressing matters.
Yeah.
So,
Fair.
And that's for the increase from 2% to 3%, correct?
So that's so he's not asking us for a letter of support for that. That's what the suggestion is in the new legislation. What he's asking us to support is that it applies to all, that the language be flexible to allow for help with addressing the workforce shortage, and that there's a seamless process to replace the old act with the new, so there's no impact on their cash flow.
So we're not saying yay to 2 to 3, or like,
Yeah.
that's already, that's in the legislation.
Yeah.
And Terry is saying that they're okay with those decisions. It's just that as they reviewed the legislation, those were the 3 areas of concern that they had. So I would make a motion that we, if we could have more discussion after the motion, but I'm gonna make it
Yeah.
happen. So I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter of support to Destination Cape Breton, supporting the 3 points as outlined by Terry in his email of October the 7th. And further to that, I would say that we CC the CAOs and wardens of our neighboring, of the Cape Breton municipality, of the Cape Breton municipal units, and encourage them to join us in that
Okay.
support.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sampson and Deputy Warden. Is there any further discussion? Any other questions? No. Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And thank you for your follow-up on that, Troy and
Yeah.
Shelley, much appreciated. So the next item on the agenda is the review of checks issued. Are there any questions regarding the checks issued in October 2022? Okay, so hearing none, I'm going to move us on to the review of the action items. And I do have a couple of updates. Number 97 has been completed, which is our letter supporting Premier Houston's letter regarding the lack of support and participation from telecommunications companies before, during, and after Hurricane Fiona. That was sent today, as well as number 98. A letter was sent to Premier Tim Houston regarding the impact of the Yarmouth Ferry, and copied to Mayor Pam Mood as well. And in regards to number 87, which was exploring the bylaw enforcement officer partnership opportunity, just wanted to let council know that we do have a meeting that has been convened by the town of Mulgrave tomorrow at 4 p.m. So hopefully by our next meeting we'll have a little bit more of an update. So good news on that front. Are there any other questions or updates on the action items? Okay, so can I just say
I know.
how beautiful that spreadsheet is?
It's really a work of art,
How
is what it
effective
is.
the red is in stimulating action.
Love it.
A red on a spreadsheet is like something I have an allergy to, I think, so I like to get rid of it quick.
And now that you've got it, we can start hiding some of the other
Yes.
ones. They won't go away, but we'll just
Yeah.
hide the
I
ones
just hide
that
it
are
when it
stale
comes to me. It's
dated.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's awesome.
that's really great. Yeah, thanks for your work on that. It's a piece of work pulling it all together, so. So the next is items added to the agenda, and I did have a couple. So mostly for informational purposes on this first one regarding the offshore wind announcement. Last week, MP Kellaway was in the town of Port Hawkesbury, announcing a $1.8 million investment from the Government of Canada in Net Zero Atlantic to advance the offshore wind energy sector, specifically to build capacity and inclusion for rural, Indigenous, and other equity-deserving communities to benefit from this resource. Net Zero Atlantic and the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq are also contributing to the project, bringing the total investment to nearly $1.9 million. So it's pretty amazing news. I did want to say a special thank you to Chief Terry Paul for recognizing Mayor Brenda and I as co-chairs of the task force in the announcement. It was really kind of him to do that. We've been working for over a year on this, so that was very, very much appreciated. I think it's pretty exciting that Richmond County has an opportunity to play a significant role in improving our energy security and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But we do need to continue to engage all stakeholders to ensure we use the approach of sharing our ocean and wind resources responsibly, which has been a guiding principle of the Offshore Wind Task Force, but needs to be front and center in kind of engagement and decision makings that we have going forward, particularly, I would say, with regards to our First Nations communities, but also to our fishers, right? So, so anyway, great news, exciting times, and of course, all supporting, you know, the clean fuels drive that's happening in our region right now as well. And maybe as an aside to that, I will also mention that on between Wednesday and Thursday, we hosted, I guess, one of the largest offshore wind developers on the planet here in Richmond County, looking to check out the region, look at the opportunities here, and I have to say, one of the things that stood out for me the most was, you know, they said, oh, well, we knew Everwind was here, but we had no idea of the industrial community that's here. And they were blown away by it. So
I like that.
Yeah, so it was really great. Yeah. Any questions on that? Okay. Okay, so additional item is the Office of Healthcare Professionals Recruitment Community Fund was announced in the last day or so. The province announced the new funds to support recruitment and retention. The annual budget is about $2 million. What this means is that community groups and municipalities can now apply for up to $100,000 for projects to help recruit and retain healthcare professionals in Nova Scotia. Projects could include hosting community retention events, developing marketing materials, undertaking initiatives to make the community more welcoming to healthcare workers, all of the things that our Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health group does on a regular basis. So there is an application deadline of December 19th, and really see this as a way to amplify the work that we're doing already, which has been, I think, very effective for the town of Port Hawkesbury and Richmond County, but so this is an exciting opportunity to grow it. So I guess I'm wondering, you know, at this point, you know, could we be looking to staff to kind of maybe assist if there's any kind of application? I know we have one staff person that's supported by the investment that we make already, and I also know that she's got the business of medicine coming back up this week, and so there's a lot on Gina's plate right now, and I'm just, if we could ask, you know, would councillors be supportive of maybe staff reaching out from here to see if there's a way that we can support an application to be developed?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So maybe could I have a motion to that effect, to request that staff reach out to the program director for CBSRH to support an application?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. So now we have a 15-minute question period. I think that was the end of our...
It is.
Yeah. So we'll open it for questions from the gallery or from the phone.
Not a person in sight.
Not a person in sight. So the number to call is 902-226-9885, and it's not restricted to items on the agenda. It's an open question period. And we'll just give it a couple of minutes because I do recognize there's a little bit of a delay between our speaking here and broadcasting on the Telile airwaves. So that number again is 902-226-9885. Okay, it's quiet. Okay, I think we'll call it a day then. So I'm not hearing the phone ringing, and we have no in-camera items. So if there's no further business, we'll consider the meeting adjourned. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks to our folks at Telile for having us again. Much appreciated. you.